The microbial community or microbes in our body outnumber our own cells. I mean, we have these billions of microorganisms colonizing the surface of our bodies. We don't feel them, but there is a dynamic interaction between us and them, and they contribute to our health disease status.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the Scientist Podcast. This is Akram, and I'm really excited about today's episode. As you have seen in the title, today's guest is Dr. Nezar Hebshi. In today's episode, he will be sharing with us information about the exciting research that he's doing, some of the challenges that faced him during the different stages of his career, and as a faculty member, he will share with us some valuable information about what is expected of PhD students and postdocs when they apply for positions, and the things that they could increase their chances of being accepted in these postgraduate programs. Before we get into the podcast, I would like to ask you to subscribe and or follow. In here, we talk about the science, the stories behind the research, the struggle, and the success. In the Scientist Podcast, everyone will learn something new about the science while also hearing the stories of the people behind it. I believe by hearing these stories, we can start to recognize and appreciate the efforts of these researchers. So, follow if you haven't already, and let's get to the podcast. Hello, Dr. Nezar. Thank you very much for making the time to meet me today and to join the Scientist Podcast.
Good. Actually, it's good morning on my side. It's good evening on your side.
Yeah, it is. It's already 8 p.m. over here. So thank you for getting up a bit early and making time for me today.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
No worries. I know you're busy, so let's get to the topic immediately. First question that I would like to ask you about is, would you introduce yourself, first of all? And then would you, in a few, as simple as possible, I know I've in the couple of days that preceded today, in these last 3 days, I've read a little bit about your research, and I know how complicated it can get. So please try to make it as simple as possible so everybody could understand your research and what you do in your lab.
Sure. So my name is Nezar Hebshi. I was born in Sana'a in Yemen in 1975, where I did my school and undergrad education. I was trained as a dentist. I obtained my bachelor in dental surgery degree in 1999. Mm-hmm. So I spent all my life, first years of my life until I was 26 years in Yemen. And then upon graduation or obtaining my dental degree, I practiced for 1 to 2 years as a dentist. And I think I was doing fine in clinical practice, but then I was very passionate about science. So I was seeking opportunities of continuing my higher education. So it was not easy. It was not easy at all. I tried everywhere, but I was then fortunate that during my dental program, when I was a third-year student, we had the visiting professor from Sudan. His name is Professor Ali Idris, and he was teaching us oral pathology. And I think I did fine with that course. He was impressed, and he kept on coming every year. When I after 1 year of graduation, he came back, and he felt sorry that I was not able to get any opportunity to continue my education. And at that point, he had some connections with institutes in Sweden, in Norway, because there was an ongoing collaboration between Sudan and Norway and so on. So he said, would you like to try to apply to the postgraduate program in Norway, in the University of Bergen? And I said yes. I was disappointed. So we completed. He took the last copy of application from his bag. It had also a coffee stain on it because that was the last one. So
yeah.
We did that, and we sent it to Norway by mail. There was hardly we were using emails at that point. And fortunately, and he wrote me a very strong recommendation letter, and I got it. So I got the acceptance. I was very happy. I initially applied for a seat in the oral pathology department, but it was already full. So they said that the spot in the oral microbiology. At that point, we even didn't hear about this area of specialization in Yemen. We know microbiology, but we didn't know that oral microbiology would be a specialty within dentistry. And I think it was, so I accepted it, and I moved to Norway in 2001, where I started my master's, bridged directly to PhD. So it took me like 4 or 5 years to finish my PhD. So I defended my thesis in December 2005. The thesis included already at that point 4 published papers, and the work I did at that during my PhD was on the effects of gut chewing on the oral microorganisms, and how I wouldn't go into the details of the results because many people wouldn't like to see what the results are.
They wouldn't like it?
In a way, because many people would expect that and this is was my hypothesis initially, that gut would increase the levels of pathogens, will induce microbial changes that are pro-periodontitis and so on. But what I found was the other way around. And I mean, that was biologically plausible, because gut is a plant, and plant has lots of antimicrobial compounds, and so eventually when you go into the science, it's not surprising to know that, or see that gut would have antimicrobial properties, and so this is what I found and because it has also lots of tannins and phenols, so I found that it inhibited the activity of the bacteria that causes dental caries or cavities and so on. Anyway, so that was the work that I did during my PhD, and it was published, and it continues to be cited until today. And then
I think that's pretty interesting, especially for people, and people who are completely against gut, and the habit of chewing gut is one thing, but scientifically proven facts are another thing. So, and it's a fact, right?
And I made that argument in the discussion that science is science, and what we see and what we discover, we have to report it. And I use the snake's genome as an example. It's lethal. Yeah, it kills. But you see how many medicines we derive from that, from this, So that these are two separate issues, right?
Yeah, I have a comment about when you defended your PhD. Your PhD. I heard that you did it in classical Yemeni clothes, right?
Yeah. So the idea came out of blue, and although I was born in Sana'a and raised in Sana'a, but because we are originally from Aden, from the south part of Yemen, and wearing jambia is not a tradition. So even when I was in Sana'a, I was not wearing. I didn't used to wear jambia frequently. But it just came to my mind, well, this is a unique opportunity. Why don't I dress in Yemeni custom? And I asked the university, is that okay? They said yes. But I didn't have jambia. So I called to buy me one and send it by DHL. And we were only 1 week away from my PhD, like 10 days away. So he went to Bab al-Yemen and he bought me one. Silver one, which was really nice. So he wanted that to be also as a gift, not only like something that I would wear.
Who bought it for you?
My father.
Oh, your father. Oh, nice. That's a nice gift for a PhD graduate.
He packed it and he sent it by DHL. And until the day just before the defense, it then arrived. And I was following tracking it, and I found it just reached the hub close to the airport. So I called them. I am driving and coming and picking it. Don't send it out for delivery. So I drove. It was winter, December in Norway, very cold, snowing. I drove there. I got it just the night before the defense, and So on the day of the defense, I wore it. I went to with the navy color dress and the silver jambia. And the shal. And when I started the defense, the the dean of the school told the opponents that I ask you to be careful because the candidate has weapons.
Of course. But honestly, like, yeah, I didn't know that. I thought that you had it all the time with you, like while you were in Norway, because honestly, just receiving it the day before your defense is stressful, to be honest. Like, you have your defense and then you have one more thing to worry about.
But it was exciting. I mean, because it was just an idea that came to my mind, and I tried to make it happen, and it happened.
Well, very nice. Sorry.
No, but then I disappointed my father because he bought me quite an expensive one. And at the end of the defense, and when my thesis was approved, I thought that it would be
Don't tell me you gave it away.
Yeah, I gave it to them.
You did?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So to whom did you give it away?
I gave it to the school, to the university actually, and it is still kept until now in the university museum.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
But this is also a great memory too.
Yeah, it is.
And a great contribution. Okay, so this was like up until your studies, right? Would you introduce us a little bit to your work now, and what are you doing, your research?
Yeah, so I'm currently an associate professor at the School of Dentistry, University of Temple University, which is located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in the USA. I started my work in 2016. So between 2005, when I got my PhD, to 2016, it was a long journey between Yemen, also as a faculty, and then in Saudi Arabia. Maybe we'll talk about this a bit later if you would like. Mm-hmm. So in 2016, I joined Temple University, as I mentioned, where I established a research lab in the area of oral microbiome research. Which I continue to work or co-direct until now, and of course I'm involved in teaching in the school, but my focus is to do research. It was not initially because I'm not used to the US system. US system is a bit complicated. Very competitive, challenging, and to survive, you have to submit grants and obtain funding. And for somebody who came from outside USA, it was not easy. But with time, I learned from the process. In 2 or 3 years, I was able to secure 2 grants from the National Institute of Health, and then a third one, and one also from Pennsylvania Department of Health, so from the state, and now I'm working on even larger grants. So that's just an overview. As I mentioned, besides research, I teach microbiome courses to the post-baccalaureate program, which is a program before some students can get into the dental program. And I also teach the freshman one course, and then some lectures for the postgraduate program.
They're all in oral microbiology?
Yeah, most of my work is in the oral microbiology, but as it relates to gum disease, periodontitis, dental caries, and my particular focus is on oral cancer. So this is what most of the work I'm doing now is at the intersection between microbiology and oral cancer.
I see. And simply put, what did you find? How does oral microbiology relate to cancer? Okay, so before I get to that, I have 3 primary areas of research or lines of research. One is because this is the concept of microbiome. Let me maybe explain it in layman terms. Microbiome refers to all microorganisms in a particular site of the body. So if we take a sample from the mouth, all the bacteria, all the viruses, all the fungi, as a community that are present in the oral cavity
or on the skin or in the gut is called microbiome, and we name it after the site it comes from. So if it comes from the oral cavity, that's oral microbiome. It comes from the gut, that's gut microbiome. Mm-hmm. And when I say community, then it is a community because there is lots of interaction between the members, synergism, antagonism between these microorganisms, and they are also a dynamic relation with the host. So they are not just commensals. I mean, we have these billions of microorganisms colonizing the surface of our bodies. The mucosa, all the way from the mouth, all the way to the small intestine, and so on. We don't feel them, but there is a dynamic interaction between us and them, and they contribute to our health disease status. Mm-hmm. Not in the classical sense that's where our classical understanding, where one pathogen would cause disease, like malaria will be caused with a protozoan, or whether cholera will be caused by a bacterium, or HIV will be caused by a virus. These single pathogens. Now in the context of this microbial community that lives with us, because their number out, or the microbial community or microbes in our body outnumber our own cells. So for every human cell, there are 10 bacteria, and
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and
this is very interesting.
Imagine so, and if that's only for bacteria. So if you include the viruses, that would be even more. So we are more bacteria in terms of number than human cells.
Okay, this is quite interesting.
Now, even more interesting that for every human gene, there are 100 bacterial genes. So imagine, we are now described as a superorganism whose features or behavior is not just the sum of our genetic makeup, but also of us and of the bacteria and microbes that live with us. So these microbial communities, or what I call as microbiome, interact with us, and there has been great interest in the microbiome. So the concept re-emerged in this special context in 2001, and since then there has been great interest in understanding the composition and the function of this microbiome, how these microorganisms look like, what are they, and how do they function, and how they contribute to health and also disease. And we have had an explosion in the number of studies that demonstrate that the microbiome contribute to all diseases you can think of: diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular diseases, inflammatory, autoimmune diseases, hypersensitivity, allergies, neurological disorders. Of course, in the oral cavity, we have periodontitis and dental caries, and then cancers. Almost every type of cancer have been linked in one or in a way or another to the microbiome, because studies demonstrated that people who have cancer have different microbiome than those who do not have cancer. So the conclusion is that the microbiome contributes to the risk of developing cancer, and that by intervening by intervening or changing the microbiome, we can either prevent or help with the treatment of cancer.
Intervening in the sense of like suppressing certain microbiomes that are present in the oral cavity, or
for modulating the microbiome.
Can you repeat that? Because I think
modulating the microbiome.
Okay.
So there are different strategies to modulate the microbiome. One way is to introduce the good bacteria, which we call them as probiotics. That's one way. Or to add nutrients that encourage the growth of good bacteria. We call these as prebiotics. Nowadays, there is lots of research going on with fecal transplants. So we can take a fecal transplant from a healthy donor and give it to a diseased person to help with. I'll give you an example. And I came across a paper where they saw that supplementing immunotherapy in cancer in melanoma patients with fecal transplants increases the response to treatment. So this is just an example of how modulating the microbiome can improve treatment outcomes in patients with cancer. This is on the treatment side, but also understanding the role of the microbiome in early stages provide us with opportunities to identify diagnostic biomarkers, early diagnostic biomarkers, prognostic biomarkers, and also prevention targets or targetable biomarkers that we can use for prevention of cancer. So this is all an overview of the broad overview of the research ongoing on the microbiome and cancer. In my case, I am focusing on the oral cancer or oral squamous cell carcinoma. It's type of that happens in the oral cavity, which is classically, the risk factors or the causative agents are known. The major risk factors are smoking, tobacco use, alcohol consumption, and one type of viral infection called the human papilloma virus. But there is now more and more evidence that also the oral microbiome or the microbial community can contribute to the disease process, which is the focus of my
research. So squamous cell carcinoma is a type of cancer that is related to chewing tobacco. Sometimes I become dyslexic.
All forms of tobacco use. So smoking, chewing tobacco, snuff, dipping, all these forms of.
The reason I mentioned it is because before moving to Japan, I used to work in Al Thawra Hospital as in the department of oral maxillofacial surgery. And it was the number of cases that used to come with oral cancer, like squamous cell carcinoma, cases. We would weekly have one patient at least that's coming from other cities like, Hodeidah. And the numbers were scary. So I really hope that, with your research, it will be possible to kind of figure out a way to maybe detect cancer a bit earlier and easier for these people.
Yeah, for oral cancer in Yemen, the situation is similar to Sudan and to India, where the primary risk factor, or I would call it cause, not just risk factor, is the use of smokeless tobacco products. Which is highly prevalent in Yemen. We have what we call as Gamma, and Tumbak in Sudan, and in India they have lots of other varieties. They are the major risk factors. So, and in the absence of control over the production of these products, it's not easy to ask people to stop using these products. They are already using it. Better is to have policies and regulations
that prevent people from using these materials?
Process, because there are ways to treat these products to reduce the content of carcinogens in them. So at least, of course, with education campaigns and interventions to encourage people to reduce the use of or stop using these products. But on the government side, it will be even more effective to have control over the production, the production process of these products.
Well, I was going to ask, how do you see would be the applications or the outcomes of your research in aiding the process of treating these types of cases? Or is it more like a diagnostic tool? Or do you think that will actually be preventive measures that could come out of this research and help prevent,
So this takes us back to my own research. So I'm not particularly interested in the direct connection between tobacco use and cancer. So as I mentioned, in my case, I'm interested in understanding the role of the oral microbiome or the oral microbial communities, including bacteria, fungi, viruses in oral cancer and how they contribute to the disease process. So I have research projects. Some are just pending funding, where we're looking early in the process, even before the cancer happens, to see if we can identify biomarkers for diagnosis as diagnostic biomarkers or prognostic biomarkers in the early stages before lesions can convert into or change into oral cancer. And that study will be looking also on the role, how these microorganisms contribute to the development of cancer. So that's one area of my research. The other area in the same topic is, can we use good bacteria, the ones that are healthy, can we use them directly to treat? Do they have any anti-cancer properties? Can we just put them on the tumor and see if they resolve, they kill the tumors? And I have done some work in vitro in the lab, and that shows some promising results. Of course, we cannot conclude much. We have to move into mice, animal models, and then into humans, and it's a long process. But the results and we can end up with finding nothing, for example. But I am optimistic, because now the results I have from the in vitro studies, and now moving to preliminary animal studies, we have some promising results that some of these bacteria have anti-cancer properties on their own, or they can be used as adjuvants or to complement existing therapies like immunotherapy, for example. So this is also one area of my research interest in the area of microbiome and oral cancer.
And the beautiful thing about it is that, like you mentioned, like this bacteria is already part of our bodies. So it's not like you're introducing a foreign material into your body, right?
Exactly.
This is an awesome idea. Yeah, I hope it works. Yeah. Okay, so since we went back to the research and the research that you're doing in your lab, I don't think that you do all the lab by yourself, right? Like you have the work by yourself. Like you have like PhD students probably and postdocs helping you out. So I'm wondering, like, what would be the criteria that you look for in people who would want to do PhD in your department, or like apply for a postdoc over there?
Okay, so I had experience with PhD supervising PhD students before I moved to the USA. But since I came to the USA, and given the nature of my projects, and I need somebody who's already had good experience, so I have not accepted PhD students so far. So I mainly work with postdocs because they come up with lots of experience. They have already published. They have done lots of lab work. So basically, it's how relevant the experience of who's applying to what I'm doing. So I would receive lots of good applications in terms of the university from which the applicant received their PhD, how many papers in what journals they publish their papers, and with an interview based on how they seem to be knowledgeable and aware of the details of the different techniques that they worked with. But what counts for me is whether this experience is relevant to what I'm proposing. So that's usually the most difficult part. So I would always tailor my announcement to make it very clear about what experiences, expertise, skills I need from the particular applicant for the postdoc. And my advice to anyone who would want to apply is to read the announcements very, very, very carefully, and make sure before applying and wasting time, her time, and the PI's time, to make sure that, well, do I have this expertise? Do I have these set of skills? Do I have experience in this area at all? Sometimes it could be closed, so I would give it a try, because all postdocs are smart enough to be trained. But many times I would receive applications that are totally irrelevant from people who have nothing to do with what I included in the announcement. So I would discourage anyone from doing this. You cannot just fish. You have to reach out with, you have to be targeted, and you tailor your letter of interest to show, or the PI, that you know what you're applying to and how your skills and experiences will serve the project in question. So this is the way of course, then once I identify a person with matching experience and set of skills, then the interview, just to make sure that they have good communication skills, all other personal qualities that you would want to see in somebody you work with.
So ideally, like any applicant would match, the exact requirements that you have put the ad for, or like the recruitment, announcement for. So far, like I don't know, I'm not putting anybody on blast, but so far, what percentage did the applicants fulfill? Like people who you hired or who are in your lab, do they fit the requirements that you had as 100%, or like what percentage do you think would be acceptable for you to accept a postdoc in your lab?
That's a difficult decision. It depends on how many applicants and how desperate you need a postdoc. I was very lucky with my first postdoc, and that I would say maybe 90%, around 85 to 90% of what I expected to see was he had that. So
that's pretty good.
Worked with me for 5 years. The second postdoc was also, I would say 60%, 60% match, I would say. But again, as I said, postdocs, PhDs are smart and they're trainable. But you need at least a bare minimum that this postdoc wants this, because he's not a PhD student or a master's where you're going to train from scratch. You have a project and you want to make progress with this project. Yeah. So you need at least the postdoc to have the skills, the potential to make even little progress from the day he or she joins the lab. So if I would say 30-40% of what is required is available, then that would be acceptable.
That would be acceptable. So I know, like you mentioned earlier, that you don't accept PhDs in your lab yet. Let's say that in the future, hopefully you will start accepting PhDs. Do you think that they should have some prior research experience, or generally speaking, not even in your lab, somebody who's interested in joining a PhD program? What do you think, which requirements does a PhD student need to have in order to be a successful PhD student or PhD scholar?
Now, it's here where the being in a different system versus where we came from. Based on my experience, I went to Norway with no research experience whatsoever, and still, not only me, many of others who came after me from Yemen and from other countries were able to succeed eventually. So I would say that's not a requirement, but in a competitive setting like the US, where you have lots of applicants, that becomes a requirement, and many people come already to apply to a PhD with substantial research experience, either as part of a master's degree after their undergrad, or some students are active enough to do some impressive research projects during their undergrad and even publish. So in that case, we give priority to those who did. So if somebody from outside USA is applying to USA for a master's or a PhD, it becomes very, very, very difficult if they don't have maybe a few could have made it through the system. But usually people with previous experience are given priority. Yeah, I mean, actually, even with the masters, because one reason that I'm not yet accepting PhD as of now, because if I want to accept, I have to go through the university program, because we don't have a direct PhD through our school. But I still have the option of getting PhD students through the university or the medical school. So we have our own master's program, and I'm in the committee, and we still expect the applicants to have or give priority to those applicants who have done some undergrad research.
Let me ask you, like, you being part of the educational members of Temple University, is it required of undergrads to do some research?
Yeah.
Is it a requirement?
Actually, I teach one of these courses. So we have, in our dental school, we have two courses called Science in Dental Practice. And it's two parts. So in part one, we provide the students with an overview of research and science and how it's important to dentistry, evidence-based dentistry, systematic reviews, and how they can appraise the literature, and how to present research, and how to criticize scientific papers. Also, we provide them with an overview of the basic research design in dental research. And then in Science in Dental Practice 2, which starts in year 2, they start to do in groups their own research. And it's a requirement. They have to do research and present the results of that research before they graduate. But of course, it's not always necessarily to do original research. They have also the opportunity to do systematic review instead of doing original research. So they have at least two options to choose from for their research requirement, but it's a requirement.
I see.
And they don't graduate if they don't complete that requirement.
It was the same thing in here in Japan. I was so impressed when I joined like my PhD program here, and I saw undergrad students performing research. Of course, like you said, like they don't. It's not necessarily a complicated research, but at least, they learn how to do experiments, how to be in a lab, how to make a hypothesis, and basically be able to at least write a paper. Of course, it's done in Japanese, though.
Funny story about this, because when I was a fifth-year student in Yemen, and last year in the dental program, and some of the visiting professors suggested that as an option, we can do some research. And then it was not serious about it, but I liked the idea and I wanted to do something. So on my own, I just wrote a proposal to the best I can at that point, and I wanted to study the effectiveness of the new generation then bonding agents between combine amalgam with composite, because many times we at that point I thought that maybe we can face amalgam with composite. So I took the initiative myself. I traveled to it and I bought one of the bonding agents there. I brought it to Yemen. I made the blocks of composite and of amalgam, and then I placed the bonding agent and the composite on top of it. I made these blocks. I made extension wires from each block so that we can pull them apart to test the tensile strength. I went to the engineering department to see if they have the Astron machine that will break we can test the specimens, but I couldn't find. And I ended up doing very, very weird to test for the tensile strength by adding weights, more weights. You have the groceries.
Yeah. But that's impressive.
Wire to break the bond.
This is awesome. This is like you found a way. You find a way, and that's why you're a researcher. That's why you're like you have your own lab.
Yeah.
It's honestly this is great. I did not hear a similar story so far, but yeah, awesome. And this brings me to the next question that I wanted to ask you. What are the difficulties that you faced, along your career? So you like you said, like you moved in between different places. Right now, you just mentioned one of the difficulties that you faced during your like bachelor's and trying to do research. So basically, not being the universities in Yemen being under equipped, not equipped well enough for research is one of the problems. But for example, when you moved to Norway, or I know you also worked for a little bit for not even a little bit for a while in Saudi Arabia, and also you did some research in Yemen too. And after that, you moved to the States. So what were like the main difficulties that faced you during these different stages of your life?
Yeah, so I just gave that example of my early attempts to do research in Yemen
Yeah.
as a student, and because it was not a requirement, I did my best to, and I had a lovely professor from Egypt, Dr. Thuraya Junaid, who was supporting me, and she was impressed by my enthusiasm for doing research when I was still at that point of my career. And moving to Norway changed everything, because I moved to a very respected, reputable university, research university known for a strong research program with lots of mentorship, research lab, facilities, funding. So that changed things 180 degrees. So it's there where I was really trained as a researcher in Norway. So the credit goes to them and to my supervisor, who passed away in 2007, unfortunately, Nils Kag. So I found myself in a lab with all the resources, facilities that I need, and also funding I need, and with even little restrictions on even the topic that I want to choose for my research, which would be maybe a disadvantage in the mind of some people who do things work in the USA, where usually the PI would in a way dictate the area, or at least the line of research. It was up, and I was
free to choose the subject that you want to research.
Of my research, to develop the methods, to test them, to do everything on my own. That was great, and on the one hand, because that gives us freedom, but it was also very difficult because we, in a way, received less mentoring than a PhD would receive for example, in the USA. But that was a unique opportunity for us to develop to be independent researchers even before completing our PhD.
So this is a question that I wanted to ask you about. Like you said, like you didn't have prior research experience, or like limited research experience prior to moving to Norway. What were the steps that your university in Norway took to train you as a researcher? Is the official language English in the lab, or in the program?
The official language in Norway is Norwegian, and it's still used throughout graduate and specialty programs as well. But for the postgraduate, the masters and the PhD, because these are international programs, then these are in English language.
So educational materials, everything was in English?
Yeah. As part of the program that I was admitted to, everything was in English. So, so I studied through an intensive 6 months courses, really heavy courses, from all the way from 9 to 3 every day for the first 5 months, where we had large dose of basic concepts of research, or the principles of research, and only towards the end of that where we start to, and the way it works, because you have a system. You have people or students who have started 1 year before you, and then 2 years and 3 years, and you have access to all these resources and materials and proposals, thesis, so you can go back and read and see how people do and seek their help even before you get back all the way to your mentor. So it's the learning environment also. It's not just the courses that you would receive or the facilities you are. So there is a very strong research environment. You learn from everyone. You interact with everyone who's doing research, who's more senior by 1 year, by 2 years, by 3 years, by 4 years, and so on. So you learn from everyone. So things eventually work out for you. So and I think this is the difference between. So it's not about just funding and even access to equipment. Is the research environment in terms of expertise, researchers, research teams, very established PIs that you can connect with, learn from. That makes a difference between, although Saudi Arabia has now changed a lot and they have made huge progress in the area of scientific research. But when I moved, of course, in Yemen, the experience was although exceptional. What was exceptional that I was able to establish the first research lab in Yemen between 2006 and 9. That was so in 2009 the lab was ready, and that was at the University of Science and Technology with direct support from Dr. Sinan Tarab Sinan Abu Luhum. May his soul rest in peace. We established the first molecular research laboratory in Yemen, and it's there where I also started did lots of work as an independent researcher, and I supervised master students and PhD students, but we had lots of challenges with funding. We were able to purchase the equipment. We had a very quite well equipped lab, but we had difficulties, extreme difficulties with funding, and then the lack of research environment. Basically, you are on your own. There isn't anyone you can really learn from or interact or team with or collaborate. It was, but still was productive given the circumstances in the country. But as you know, the situation in 2011 deteriorated. Power outages, everything it didn't work out. I mean, we were trying to push hard, but even you can handle doing small experiments with even out of pocket money, but you cannot work without electricity, for example. So,
but from what I understood from you did molecular biology experiments and like primers, materials for this kind of things
so
are very expensive. They're not.
We did simple genotyping. We did lots of PCRs, quantitative PCRs, real-time PCRs. Lots of course, basic microbiology, culture-based work, and I was moving towards doing sequencing and oral. It's at that point where I started to get interested in oral microbiome because it was still new, and I was following it very eagerly, but I couldn't do much. But when I moved to Saudi Arabia, of course, the situation financially was much better. There were opportunities for funding. So that changed trajectory in a ways. I was able to get some funding and do higher quality research projects, enabled me to do establish collaboration with researchers from the USA, from China, Malaysia, Australia, and so on. And we published a number of good papers. But still, I missed the research environment where you're living among big teams of researchers and PIs, where you can interact and learn and so basically it was still individual efforts, although you receive the funding, but you don't see the institutional aspect of research the way you see it here in the West and in the USA. I'm sure that things have changed a lot from that time, because Saudi has been developing very quickly, very impressively, and I'm sure also the situation is even better in bigger universities like King Saud University and King Abdulaziz. But still, the system in the USA is very robust, very supportive, very efficient when it comes to research. So it has been a pleasure for me, and I have learned a lot since I came here in 2016.
I think in 2015 I had an internship in Stanford in the sleep and circadian lab, And one thing that shocked me is like you said, like it's like you see researcher all over, like brainstorming is amazing, like exchanging of ideas was amazing. But one point was like you said, it's pretty competitive. And they said that every year they have labs that are closed for lack of funding.
Right.
But that is, I was like, this is Stanford and they're closing down labs. So that was one of, yeah.
Because when you apply to funding, submit grant applications to, for example, the National Institute of Health, the success rate is sometimes 11, 12, 15%, at the best 20%. So, which means that out of 100 applications, only 20
is gonna work. Wow.
And many times you have to submit your application twice, and I've even tried to improve it and add more and more. And the review process is very brutal. I have not experienced this level of scrutiny in review back in, for example, Sweden, maybe, or even in my collaboration with researchers from Europe. Also, they have the same impression that the scrutiny of the review process in the USA is even higher or more stringent than it is in Europe and in Australia. So it is very tough.
Yeah. So I think during this conversation, like we talked about different difficulties, and probably maybe the difficulty that you're facing in US is this part, is the funding part. Isn't it?
Say it again, because you disconnected for a few minutes.
Okay, sorry. So in the beginning of my last question was the different difficulties that you had during different stages of your life. So probably with this stage of your life is like the basically the funding process of being able to fund your lab.
Right.
That would be the answer to my question, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the most challenging. It's the our bread and butter here as researchers in the USA. Funding is always the priority. I work in a very supportive institution, Temple University, so I have received lots of support, and universities can be understanding sometimes. They appreciate the difficulty of getting funding, and that it's not possible to be funded all the time. So it also differs from one institution to another. So in an institution like Temple, where you receive lots of support and understanding, also makes life easier.
A bit easier, yeah. So my next question is, sorry. So having faced all these difficulties, how do you support your younger staff? What are the tips that you give them in order for them to avoid these difficulties that you already have faced and have experience in? Do you do you have discussions where you kind of lead them and show them the way?
Maybe I had this sort of discussions when I was back in Yemen with my master's and PhD students. We have this support even outside the scientific aspect of our interaction. We have more social interaction, and we talk about different things here. Since I came here in the USA, I have been a bit. The situation is that everyone is a bit pragmatic. So what we are focused on and give our time all is to make progress with the projects. I meet with my postdocs regularly. If they, of course, if they have any issues with their social lives or with everyday life, I am very flexible. I provide them with support. If they need any recommendation letters, if they are planning to develop and apply for grants. For example, in my case, the two postdocs are from India, so they are now both back to India. So they know that I am willing to always support them, and even to collaborate with them to help them with their new career. I have not had the opportunity to have somebody from Yemen or from the Middle East, for example. I think that in that case, the situation would be a bit, or the interaction would be a bit different. because I am more aware of the challenges back home in that area of the world. So I would be in a better position to provide advice and help.
That was going to be my question. Like, have you had experiences that anybody reach out to you from like back in Yemen or like from the Middle East asking you for advice?
Yeah, I mean, I have this all the time. I mean, I in addition to those who I already mentored or supervised in Yemen when I was there, I kept in touch with whomever needs help with advice about choosing a topic of research or completing an application for any. So whenever somebody reached out and the area of research is within my area of expertise, I actually supervised the master's students in Yemen while I was here in the USA. And we collected samples in Yemen, and then we had to, because of the blockade, we had to smuggle them to Saudi Arabia, then to Malaysia, and then from Malaysia, I brought them all the way to here to the US, and we did the analysis in my lab. So I to the best I can, I have, apart from master's students or PhD students, I have lots of collaboration with Yemenis and non-Yemenis in Arabia. Basically in Saudi Arabia, but I'm always open to collaboration, and of course, anyone would reach me with advice or support in my capacity, and when I have the time to do it, I do it with no hesitation.
I do appreciate having somebody like you, somebody with good background in research who's actually making it in the world as a dentist and a researcher. For some reason, I have no idea why, but like dentists are expected to work in dental clinics and in hospitals and not really be, kind of moving into research. This one thing, like it always confused me, but like you're a prime example that dentists can and will be part of research in the world. Just a question: have you had an experience like somebody that you've helped out and is actually now in a graduate program or have already finished the graduate program? One of those like that already asked you for help and they're already now making it as graduate students? Yeah,
I wouldn't call it. I don't want to say that I made favors to others. I mean, it's just part of the process.
Yeah,
part of the process, because I was the first, for example, to be in Norway. So I sort of facilitated it for a few after me who were able to come to because I was the first to be to Norway. Mm-hmm. So when I completed my PhD and went back to Yemen, I helped to establish relationship between the two institutes in Norway and Yemen, and they signed a memorandum of understanding through which several students were able to go, and they are all completed their PhDs, and they are now either working as postdocs or faculty. One of them is now a dean in one of the universities in Norway. So so that's just an example of how as you move, you can. I mean, you make your way, and you leave the doors open to the others.
Okay, so I think I've already taken a lot of your time today. So final question with two parts is that what would be your advice to young scientists, maybe from the Yemen or Middle East, and developing countries? So somebody who's interested in research, what would the resources that you would recommend to them?
Okay. I mean, I'm very impressed by the enthusiasm and hardworking people in Yemen who, despite the situation, continue to work very hard to continue their education after the undergrad or after obtaining their bachelor degree. Fortunately, although not the best or not the ideal programs, but there are some masters and PhD programs in Yemen. So those who do their best to get an opportunity outside and they don't manage, then they end up in doing research for doing their degrees inside Yemen. And I gave you an example of one that I was able to supervise remotely. And many of them do really great work, and I'm impressed. These are should be highlighted as role models because they succeed where success is maybe impossible. So I would advise people to, in case they are not able, you can apply. There are lots of opportunities, scholarships, but they are very limited. The number of people accepted through these scholarships, and the money available for these scholarships is going down and down and down and down. So getting accepted through some of these programs is, especially to Europe, is very difficult, and to USA is even maybe impossible. I wouldn't say that wouldn't happen, but maybe out of 1,000, 2,000, 10,000, maybe one would get the chance to be accepted. When I'm talking about the USA,
So as an applicant from developing countries to the USA.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I would still encourage people to apply to all these opportunities to the USA, to Europe. But again, you have to show you're competitive. So one way is, if you want to get your increase your chances, if you start with smaller research projects with areas of interest or unique areas of research. Don't just repeat yourself or doing something that everyone has done. If you do something unique and then reach out to people who are interested in this area, so don't just fish. You increase your chances of getting accepted. Well, this is coming from Yemen. Yemen has this unique or rare disease that is really prevalent, and this guy has done already some research on it. Yes, I would love to bring him to my lab to work. This would increase the chances. Otherwise, if there is no choice, and you enroll in one of the local programs, PhD or master's program, try to bring it to a higher level. There are lots of Yemeni scientists around the world, in Europe, in the USA, in Australia, in Saudi Arabia, who are willing not necessarily to supervise, but provide some help to at least help you bring your research idea or to develop your research idea to a point where it becomes meritorious. So reach out to people. Don't get disappointed. But reach out to the right people with the right expertise in the area that you are interested in. So bring your work to a higher level. So at least once you are done with your master's degree in Yemen, with some good quality work, that can help you with a PhD outside. Mm-hmm. Of course, many would just continue with their master's and PhD. The problem is the lack of funding, so that's the main limit, the main problem in challenge in Yemen. So many people end up doing simpler projects, not because they're not capable of doing more complicated research, but because they don't have the money. But sometimes, even with collaboration, trying to reach out and say, okay, I have these samples, can you help me with this, or you can help me with that? Not everyone will be responsive. I can be responsive to one student, not to everyone. So
yes,
there is a limit where we can. I can help 1, 2, 3. I cannot help 100, but reach out. Try to get with your project to the best level, to the highest quality possible in that setting. And the world now is open, so you can learn a lot without traveling anywhere. You can learn about the basics of principles of research, basic statistical analysis, the basic study designs, and everything you can learn online. There are unbelievable resources that are maybe better than if you're in one institution, because you can diversify. So you can watch the best of the best from everywhere. So it's you're back home. So it's at our time, we didn't have all this access to all this material online. Now it's endless and it's free.
In
So
the
people
last
can
five,
still educate
yeah,
themselves. Yeah,
in the last 5 years, it's like an explosion of information. Like you can find and learn about anything on the internet, and
right.
not just YouTube. Like now, Coursera, like websites like Coursera, like provide you information from decent universities. They even offer master's programs in these websites. So it's just
Exactly.
incredible right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, that's another option also online. But of course, you have to look to make sure that you join the right program with the online, because
Yeah,
there are lots of predatory programs
programs. Yeah.
and institutions that don't exist. So we have to be aware of these
Which
fake,
programs to choose,
actually
right?
fake programs
Yeah.
and fake certificates. Unfortunately, we see now lots of people getting PhD certificates. I don't know where they get it from, and they finish their program in 1 year, which is become a phenomenon in Yemen, terribly bad, and with no regulation, with no stable.
Well, just be careful and try to, get your degrees the proper way.
Right.
Is like what
Right.
one could advise, anyone who's interested in postgraduates, right?
Yeah. So it's about the standard you set for yourself. Even within Yemen, you can set some certain standard for yourself. I said I want to be up to this standard. I don't want to be below it. And as I mentioned, you can go. You can learn now everything online, and you can say, well, I want to do my research to meet these minimum standards. I want to eventually publish in this paper. I will do my best. I will connect with and I am impressed by it. Now we have a generation of, at least in the field of dental research, I see a generation of well-trained researchers in the University of Sana'a, University of Science and Technology, who are doing great job with even teaching the newer generation. So getting into this system is key to make sure that you get proper training. Choose the right university, the right program, and the right mentor, even locally, because they are not all the same. There are really good ones who you can seek their help, and they are in turn connected with the outside, so they can help you connect, and it expands with the time.
So then I think that's a great advice, and that is a very good way to, finish this podcast. I appreciate all the information that you have shared with us today, and
Absolutely.
the time that you have gave me today. So
it was a great pleasure talking to you through this. This is my first experience with a podcast, so
really, I thought that would be more.
So I also learned now a lot from this experience. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I hope that this will not be the end of our kind of professional relationship.
Absolutely.
I follow your research, to be honest. I'm friends with your younger brother, if you know that. So yeah. So it's
a small world, actually.
It is, yeah. And it's quite incredible that now with technologies like this, we can have this conversation and basically do something that can help others too. So it's
because I didn't know that I had my youngest brother. I'm older than him by 10 years actually. Had a friend who completed dentistry and then went to Japan and did his PhD in the dental area. And now he's connecting with me to have this podcast and talk about our research, which is it's fascinating.
It's a small world, right, like you said. So anyways, thank you very much for the time that you have given us today. And
absolutely.
I think, thank you very much for today. So, and I will see you in the, hopefully in future episodes.
Thank you very much and good night.
Good night.